here. So this is visualizing the diffuse map, and then we could go back to the final output here that's applying the shaded like lighting and shadows and stuff like that. And we want to do the RS, or I'm sorry, Maxon noise. Then we could use this. Basically, my idea with this noise, start using it to blend between two different shaders. So basically, we'll start with a kind of default, the pavement as it looked before, like this, and then we'll make a wet, damp kind of look shader, and then use a noise to blend between those two setups. So if we're going to make this a blend, we probably just want the scale to be a bit bigger. I don't know about the default noise here. Sometimes we don't want it really crunchy. We do want it kind of soft. I'm just going to look through. One's a bit too geometric. I don't know, maybe the default noise one was pretty good. I guess we could always just do the FBM and change the gain to make it softer, or even just reduce octaves. So overall, if this is the entire area, I'm just going to go in and do a change range to remap the output here. So what we'll have is just more contrast. And I'm thinking right now the black areas would be wet, and then the white areas would be kind of untouched concrete. So we could offset it, and then you have just less areas. Like the lower you get with this range, the less damp things will be in general. So maybe trying to get it a little bit closer, maybe something like that is nice. We could try. Just depends, I don't know, how you think the water is going to land. Maybe this is a little bit more natural looking. And then if you want different results, you just change the seed and you'll have a completely different generation. So I think we'll just get started with this. This will be basically, I don't know if you guys ever do this, but sometimes I try it. Just with these nulls, like label this as wetness mask. Sometimes I'll color them as well, just as like a bookmark or a placeholder. Then we were using this wireframe before to debug the displacement and the bump and everything like that. So I'll just move this stuff over. As you start to build out like a bigger shader and stuff, you definitely want to stay organized, especially with Redshift. It's easy to get explode your network and just get lost in what's happening. And then this we'll just say is the dry asphalt. So we plug it back in, that's what we get. And then I'm just going to highlight everything here. Maybe not everything, I'll leave the textures nodes the same and just drag it down. We just have a duplication of it, but we don't need to like reload these textures multiple times. We'll just link back to the original ones. And then I'll just link up viewer, the material output to there. And then we'll just say that this is wet. So basically, I think the diffuse on our wet can pretty much stay the same. Maybe, I don't know, get a little bit brighter to the full level of 1. It's terrific. Thank you for the tier 1. Let's go. Do you try with Max or Houdini? You guys are still, some people are still using 3ds Max with Quixel. You're in the coon zone. Thank you. I am finishing up, hoping to have by the end of this week, I'm doing a part 2 for that grains tutorial, the rendering one. So everyone that's subscribed would be in the end page and stuff for that. Let me move this over. So I redid some of the lighting and stuff for it, but this is pretty much the end results of that second part tutorial. Just adding lighting and doing the instancing workflow and stuff like that for the grains. So hopefully it's going to be another kind of hour-long YouTube tutorial. Hopefully that will be maybe tomorrow or Friday, finishing that up. But yeah, it should be a pretty fun one. I was trying out to render this in 4K for YouTube to see what their 4K video compression and stuff, how well it turns out. So get our render view back. No, not PGG for instancing, but I just did 4 packed primitives, or 4 packed grain shapes, and then using Redshift. With the Redshift object settings up here, if you just go to instancing, then you can do instant SOP level packed primitives. So it's a pretty straightforward tutorial, but it covers basically copy stamping and instancing and making variations to the grains, like rotations, changing the different things. So with the copy stamp, or, I'm sorry, just copy to points, it has this piece attribute here that you can use variant, and you can switch between different different packed primitives using it as an integer attribute or whatever. So it's pretty straightforward. It's not too much, not really a lot of scripting or stuff like that. Yeah, so we'll go back to the asphalt, and then I just want to make this. So right now the specular response is like the dry setting. It's pretty rough. We're using this texture map here, the glossiness map. So if I'm just gonna pull it open. So this map here is determining which areas here are smooth or rough. And if we just do like a gamma operation overall, you can see everything is uniformly like biased or boosted towards white, or everything is kind of clamped down towards black. Yeah, I'm hoping, Kieran, how's it going? Yeah, I'm hoping with that output, like the first tutorial I did, it wasn't, the actual end result, like the images didn't look that impressive because it was just like gray shaded particles or whatever. Like in motion, it looks pretty cool, but I'm hoping with that lighting and everything like that, hopefully it gets some more attention. So with this asphalt here, one thing we were doing is just flipping the range around. Like you could try, I think we just have to get this going again. So you could see already just reducing the minimum, we're getting closer to like a glossiness or less rough. So if we just force the roughness to be super low, we're getting closer to like a mirror. And then the reason why it still appears somewhat rough is because of our displacement and bump. So I believe displacement is turned off at the object settings. So with this bump, I don't know where, maybe this weight? Because we ended up layering these two together, so I'm just trying to think what the best way is to uniformly disable these. This stuff is pretty cool. I don't remember if it was the title or the end sequence of like Black Panther. They had some pretty cool black sand in that. This looks like a lot of it might not even be a grain simulation. Like you could maybe do a lot of this just with traditional particles. Seems like some fancy compositing and stuff, but the end shading and stuff looks pretty good. I don't think I'm gonna separate the YouTube. I might do like I might try to do different playlists or something like that. But I'm hoping primarily to build more interest and stuff like that in the Twitch channel through the YouTube tutorials. So that's why I'm thinking to keep them linked up together and everything like that. As we're getting hungry with the McDonald's commercial. Yeah, this is the black sand from Black Panther I was thinking about. This almost looks closer to September. How's it going? It almost looks like that flaky metal, the metallic flakes or whatever. Umair, who was it? Yeah, Umair was linking earlier. So we'll go back to this. Just looking at the asphalt here, we basically forced our roughness to be 0, but we're still seeing a little bit of roughness just because of the bump map. So what I might try to do is maybe another bump with Blender. I'll just try plugging this into everything. Kills 9114. This is Houdini, and then we're using Redshift to render. And then I think if I just set the weight, yeah, to this to 1, this will say blend to wet. So with this one, I'm going to be using the slider to switch between the full dry bump map, and if we wanted to, we could just go something in between, like just 0.7, and say this is our wet, just less bump, so it's like more shiny. So basically like a coat of moisture or water or something like that is sitting on top of the asphalt and kind of filling in a lot of the gaps and acting more like a mirror. That's the idea, like physically or theoretically behind doing this. We might want to not go all the way down there with our roughness. Like we might want a little bit still. So it depends how wet we want to say this is, but we'll just give this a try. So I'm just going to go back into this. We're going from 0, where we want it wet. I might flip it around and say 1 is dry and 0 is going to be. I'm sorry, flip it around. So 1 we're going to be wet and 0 will be dry. So it's just visually it makes, I don't know, more sense as like a wetness slider, wetness amount. Yeah, I think with the sand grain stuff, like a lot of that stuff is just being smart about your simulations and stuff like that. So you're never simulating the whole data set. You're just, a lot of it I think is just static or sculpted kind of grain particles that aren't actually being simulated. So now with this wetness mask, we should be able to just pump it in. Just going to expose this weight. So instead of this slider, we can go up to there. And then if I go back to visualize this output, we're starting to get some kind of wet areas. The one thing that happened though was, like, originally I wanted this amount to go up to 0.9. So I'm just gonna do a multiplication here. The wetness amount maxes out at 1, but if I just multiply it by 0.9, then it will just never get completely too smooth or anything like that. And then overall, for our main shader, we're not blending between these two yet. So I can just do material blender, and then the base material will be our dry, and the layer will be wet. And then with this blend color, I think we can just do the same thing there. So I'm thinking this wet area, it just looks a little bit too bumpy right now. So I might go higher with that. And with this range, I might force it to be lower, just to get more of a mirror kind of looking stuff. I don't know, this, I guess too much, it doesn't, we want a little bit of distortion kind of happening in there. Yeah, I guess all of the asphalt should be a little bit damper. I think, and then overall this does just appear very dry. So I guess one thing we could do is just, if we go back to our wetness map, instead of having this contrast so high, if we just bring this other slider up, then just certain spots will be very dry. So this will be completely wet, and we'll just be blending between more areas. I don't know. You might want we could try doing the power function for like a exponential or more control. I might toss in. No, it's good. It's good to get feedback and stuff like that. I think it does make sense. This might not be the best approach, though. I might go back and do something else. But I'm just gonna add the vehicle in, just so we have something sitting in there doing something. We could also was adding this dome light back in. If we turn it up, we can start to get more of like a daytime render setting, and maybe it's easier to debug or evaluate some of this stuff with more ambient lighting happening. So I might get rid of this power, the exponent stuff. Looks like that broke my shader. Sometimes when that happens, you just need to recompile. It should be back. Maybe my range, I was flipped around. Oh, this bump multiplication lost its wire somehow. Maybe, I don't know if Redshift doesn't play that well with these null nodes. But now we should be able to go back. So I think this dry shader here, we should just make it appear a little bit more damp like that. Just overall, just saying that there's more moisture. I think player 2's comment makes more sense, where it's like, if it did rain, certain puddles would have accumulated, but there would still be a layer of residue or humidity or something like that left on the pavement. And then I think just overall, this input bump, this input bump might be a little bit too strong overall. So if we wanted to, there's some additional stuff we could do, like adding another layer of warping or distortion to these normals. If we go back to the pure ref board, I don't know if these ones have it, but sometimes we looks like they don't really have it. Sometimes in these puddles though, you'll see like the larger, I don't know, I guess if they're big enough that they would accumulate ripples or something like that, you would see it doing kind of like anisotropy or something. So instead of this reflection being perfectly straight, it's wavering back and forth a little bit more. We could do like a large scale noise to break that up. I'm just gonna keep going, I think, with where we are right now. I think it's looking okay. One thing we could do, where did it go? We could try to pull in some of these lines and add them. So I might just grab these straighter lines. I don't think it makes a lot of sense to have the dashed lines if we're saying this is like a parking lot or a racetrack, or I don't know, somewhere. The dotted lines are usually like a traffic lane, so it wouldn't make a lot of sense to have them here. And then I might just start with 4K. We were doing 8K for the asphalt, but it was taking a little bit longer for the GPU to like load the textures and stuff like that. So I'll just unzip this archive. Whoa. All right. So I unzip the archive, and then I can just grab a copy of the texture sampler. With the skid marks, I wasn't 100% sure. I've done some different stuff with them in the past. I am planning to add them, but I don't know at what stage they'll get added. This was one of the references I kind of pulled in. So, like, you could look for a texture like this that's kind of built out. I did do a quick search around before the stream, and I didn't find anything that was that usable, like extracted on alpha or on white or something like that. But it is possible to kind of build this stuff yourself. So we already have a tire tread texture that we're using for the tires to bump them or for displacement. And you could build your own curves and then apply that to them with some noise to break up the treads, and then just render that using Mantra, or render that as a constant shader with Redshift, and then bring it in and use it that way. Kind of like texture baking. You're doing like a little substance session or something, you're doing a texture bake within Houdini. So with this new sampler, I'm just gonna go in and get the lines that I just downloaded. Let's just grab these from the road lines. I'm just gonna get, we have a few different things, opacity, roughness, displacement. I'm just gonna grab opacity for right now. And if we restart the render, you can see we're getting the lines. If you want to play around with this repetition, you just change the scale. So with this vertical, the y-axis, component of the UV, because these are already straight, it doesn't really make a big difference. So with this the X component, I might just leave it at 1 for right now. Building an asset library, just hoard textures like a raccoon. Save items you get from doing new projects. It's kind of that approach. So the majority of what I'm doing is like, I haven't done a lot of projects like this where it's a complete build out of stuff. So I'm not that good as like a look dev concept. Like that's kind of advice for this type of workflow. The majority of what I do in Houdini is usually fluid sims or particle sims, and then a lot of procedural shading. So a lot of that stuff is nice because you don't need big texture libraries and stuff like that. But what I've been doing more recently is I just have like a folder, try to keep it pretty organized with textures. And then if you just make materials within that and keep like PBR kind of materials, that's kind of what I've tried to do here. So I have like rubber, concrete, leather, wood, and then these should be enough to like get you started if you just need somewhat. If you're doing like architecture or something, you could move pretty quickly with these, I think. So this one's trying to load it with this. So this is a marble or something. Yeah, it's very easy to hoard textures or to spend an entire day just acquiring textures and think you're making progress and stuff, but I find it better just to like get started as quick as you can. With that, the resources page, like all of the links in that should be completely free to download with no membership. So you should be able to grab stuff as you need, and like all these are nice because they give you the expected channels for all of them, like the roughness and all that stuff. So just using like the standard shader, you just kind of plug in the maps and you're in a good place. But yeah, I don't know. I've never found a perfect solution in terms of like drag and drop good to go. You could make like a shader scene or something like that, but I'm sure some people have better ideas. So this is our lines map over here. And I think if we just add it to the diffuse, we could just do vector add because it's a color, and we'll get our lines showing up. I don't think we need to worry too much with like bump and the rest of the stuff for these lines because it's just like to add a bit of detail or just a bit of like interests. You might want to move them around a little bit. You could even rotate. I don't know if it makes sense. Just download all of them. Just get like an 8 GB hard drive and keep every texture possible on it. This might be more interesting like compositionally if we do a diagonal type of lines. And then I think just with like the scale, these shouldn't be as wide as the tire, but they should be a little bit wider just to kind of match up with stuff. Just called stuff. Yeah, I think I have like 3 different external hard drives that just have various folders on them called stuff, or like 3D files, different things with like 3D in the title. So yeah, I think I'm not doing the best workflow right now for this stream because I'm just trying to move as quickly as possible, but like this type of stuff, keeping these textures in the downloads folder is not the best workflow. You would want to move these maybe inside of your project directory. A lot of studios I've worked at, they don't let you pull in assets from outside of your like shows directory or the shot directory structure. So if they just need to restore your scene or your shot to pull it in later and use it for a different project, then they don't need to hunt down a lot of the assets and stuff like that. So if you are doing your own like more professional projects, the one thing I would recommend is moving these, copying these into your like project directory when you use them, or if you always know you have like a general texture shared library, just keep them all in there, but don't, usually shouldn't work out of the downloads like that. Yeah, sorting them out and organizing them is not that fun. The one thing everyone tells you to do, but no one does, asset tracking. There's one guy, I think he made something called AE-lib for Houdini. And I think as part of this, he made a tool that's Dubtronics. Thank you for continuing the gift sub. Let's go. So I think I don't know where it is in here, but somewhere he had a tool that was basically collect all and save. So it would gather up all the references and then make them, copy them over into the shot for you. So I think that, like, if you're using scripts and you're that experienced and stuff, that's a good way to go. Maybe it's in this demo video. I'm not sure where. It might be on it. Vimeo's a bit of a mess now. Keep the party going. Yeah, so I don't remember. Might be in toolbar, shelf. I don't remember exactly where it is in these scripts, but someone has made scripts for Houdini that's like collect all and save. I think some other 3D softwares have it, like After Effects or something might have it, but yeah, the directory structure is pretty good. I'll usually make my own when I'm working. That's like scenes, and I would take the time to make a texture or just TEX directory and all of that. If I'm actually like doing a longer project and everything. But yeah, if you do the file set project, this should make the necessary directories and stuff like that for you as well. So I think if we go back up to yeah, I've seen a lot of on Git, there's a few different open source like pipelines and stuff like that. So I think we could reduce this HDRI. I was kind of using this as an ambient light. So this is a night HDRI. And I was finding that just with the reflections on the car, it was making things a little bit more realistic. I think with the earlier render, that was one of the big issues, was just that there was no ambient, like usually in a scene like this, there would be some neon lights on a convenience store or something like that. Other fluorescent lights that would give it little specks like this. I think that was one of the things that was my reasoning for adding this additional HDRI. So we got the wet shader, got our lines. This might be a little too much. I don't know. It was kind of nice the way that we were more vignetted, or like this, just the center here is where your interest is at. Yeah, so I might just put the smoke back in and give it another render and see what happens. "300 objects named cube 267 engine shader 483." Yeah, it's there's that's part of it. Like, just I'm just more trying to demonstrate like the uses of these textures than especially when you're working with other people. Like, I would feel really bad if I was someone else, like a lighter, had to pick up this scene and they started with a bunch of textures or stuff that was unorganized. So that's a big part of it as well, is like working with the team. Then you start need to be more conscious about being clean and stuff like that. If you're just a freelancer, you could do things with an external hard drive and all that, but yeah, doing collaborative projects, you need to definitely be more mindful of like the asset tracking and all that stuff. So this is looking pretty cool. I might go ahead and start trying to add in some of the headlights. So at this frame, the voxel count of the simulation, it looks like it's 23 million. This is after I converted it to VDB, so this isn't the simulation resolution. That's a oof. It's not, I don't know, it's not super it's definitely close to like production. It's definitely like a production workable resolution, but yeah, it's the simulation was just taking an hour because I was doing everything on the GPU or with OpenCL. But yeah, so yes, I'm just gonna start thinking about these headlights. I might go into the vehicle. This is where we were setting up all the shaders, splitting up the car and everything like that. So we should already have areas where this is like the glass at the front of those. And then I think, yeah, with the metal, we have some different reflectors. So I'm pretty sure, I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure what happens is somewhere there's a bulb here that's pointed at these areas. You know, under an hour with that res. If you keep everything on OpenCL, it should be pretty quick. And what I've found is like even older cards with Houdini with OpenCL, as long as you keep everything with OpenCL and don't use gas field VOP or things that require a CPU transfer. Even older, slower, like NVIDIA cards will still solve the smoke simulation pretty quickly. So I think these mirrors are reflecting the light. I don't know if we want to kind of hack it and do like spotlights pointing this way. And then we probably want to go back to our reference board a little bit and just take a look. So it looks probably like these are the dual. I guess they just have two different highlights. Like one is the high beams, the fogs, and one's the regular one. This was the Murcielago. Well, how do you spell it? Murlago? Murcielago. So I'm just trying to pull up a night photo of it. Yeah, so I don't know, it looks like the majority of the light is coming out of the bigger circle. I guess that it's always hard to tell because people can get like the aftermarket headlights, or that people switch out the models and stuff like that. This looks closer to what we have there. Here we can see some nice cutting through the through some smoke or something like that. This is a pretty good, a better shader than I set up. So what I'm gonna do is just work off of this node tree, and then I'm just gonna go in here and grab these, just press delete, and then all right, let me try that again. I want to go up here to the viewport, press the 9 key, and I forgot to go by name or limbic paths. So I think, oh, maybe these aren't connected. So we might not have enough selection in the hierarchy right here. I might just have to delete them by the face number. So when we didn't have enough naming granularity or specificity in our hierarchy, we just have to start deleting by face number. I think that's the case with this. I'll just do that and press delete, and then remove this from the chain. I don't want to modify the existing output that we were rendering with. This is just going to be a separate output. I'll just do delete non-selected. Then what I want to do is just isolate each of these little areas and get a single point position for all of them. So kind of like a locator or a null or something like that. So let me try doing connectivity. I don't know if this is gonna work, but I'm hoping that it's connected and we just get, yeah, so we have 0 through 3. So each of these shapes has connectivity that is treating it as a single object. So I think now I can just do, maybe I can just do this with the extract centroid. And then the piece attribute, I think we can just change that to class. And then we have our centroid points for each of the mirrors. So this is generating this attribute based off of the 3D connectivity. And then this is saying each unique connectivity, just extract the centroid point. Should be good. It's a gem, somewhat. So I think we might want to do create a direction. I'm just going to use normal n. We want it to be 3 components x, y, and z for each axis. You would set this the normal if you want. All that does is basically we'll make these x, y, z otherwise different types. It might just be 0, 1, 2, and then it also will change the way that Houdini transforms the vector. So with normals, you are transforming them in a special way. Like velocity, if you scale geometry up, you want the velocities to scale as well. But normals, if you scale the geometry up, you don't want the normal attributes to change. So setting this to normal can be good if you just want it to be a pure direction. You've been doing this a whole lot more complex. Yeah, I think it kind of just comes with like research or experience or stuff like that. The one thing I do find with Houdini is that because they offer so many different ways to do things, and there's so much older kind of outdated tutorials or documentation or Houdini hip files that might have been created before these newer, like this extract centroid is a somewhat newer node. So it can be easy to either do a lot of like vex wrangles, or sometimes as well, like I'll see a lot of people doing for each. I was about to do a for each loop, and then I remembered that I could just do this extract centroid. But yeah, I think that's like the top tier part of Houdini, is once you've kind of learned and gotten pretty experienced with all the different areas, then you can start to like optimize your workflow so you aren't doing as many nodes, and then just it makes things easier for other people to pick up and understand, because they don't have to go through, like if I was doing this extract centroid, instead of doing this, if I did it with a for each and then had a bunch of wrangles or something inside of it, it would take someone like 3 minutes to go through that and decipher what I was doing. But just doing it this way is more of a common convention, so someone would open this file and just, it would take them less time to understand it. So we'll do direction for the normal. I think we can just do positive Z. This would just be the direction the lights are going, and then I can just do a null at the end. And I'll say that this is out, headlight, locate, locations. For each wrangle, remove prim, add point. Yeah, that I do that sometimes as well. It depends on the situation and stuff like that. But if you have 3D connectivity, or you have this defaults to the name attribute. So for RBD simulations like packed primitives and stuff like that, it's very easy. It's a little bit different with packed prim, because you can almost skip this step entirely and just do add and then do like delete geometry but keep points. So sometimes you don't even need the extract centroid. You know what I mean? Like if you have grids, copy to points. Yeah, the add stop, that's a good one. So if I just do the platonic teapot, I'm just going to do pack an instance. Then we have our packed teapot shapes. I don't know why they're such a low resolution. I think if you just do this convert, then they show up a little bit normal. So we have packed geometries, and then if I just do this step, this is kind of like the extract centroids. It's kind of nice. Seen people sprinkle vex wrangles all over the place to flex their math skills. Yeah, I mean, some of that stuff as well is like, depends on the situation and stuff that you're working in. Like, it can be fun to do that kind of adverse forms. It can be kind of fun to do that stuff as learning experience or practice and things like that. SH, S2H, S2H, thank you. Good to hear you enjoy the stream. Yeah, I think, so like doing that kind of stuff, or even in solvers, like doing a lot of stuff from scratch, I try not to do it, especially for streams or like work files, unless there's really specific reasons to do it that way. Like if you're just doing stuff on your own, it's fun to try out stuff and build like a particle solver from scratch. But if you start using that stuff in production or with a team, everyone else might just get really annoyed with you, because instead of using the pop solver that they know how it works and they know the attributes that they can use with it and stuff, they have to learn or troubleshoot and like debug this thing you made. So it's cool for experimentation and learning and stuff, but then for actual like teamwork and stuff, sometimes it can be a bit of a hindrance. So I'm just using this null to mark this is where we're outputting our headlights. And I could put the display flag back, or it's already going to be on this out node because I have the output flag set there. We go back up to the object level and turn off normals at this point. I'm just going to make another geometry node. So I'm going to use this to fetch those headlight points. Building your own particle solver sounds like a fun thing to do. It is a fun thing to do, especially if you're learning DOPS and you do it inside of DOPS or even just inside of a SOP solver. Like, it is really cool to figure out how to do like kind of I don't know, like you do your emitter over a substep, and you do like you find the time step and you do a bunch of stuff like that. Is cool. Keeping track of the ID and sourcing new particles and adding ideas and then doing like collisions and stuff is cool to figure out. I mean, it would be a cool stream or something like a demo to do for people that are interested in learning more about math and physics and stuff like that. But you just have to be clear that you're doing it as like a learning purpose. You're not trying to like outdo side effects and make a different approach to like it's like reinventing the wheel kind of. There's no reason to do it when there's one that works well and is widely used. So I'll do an object merge. I'm just going to use this to grab the headlight geo, the headlight locators. The reason I'm doing this in another object is because there's animation happening at the object level. So we want to do into this object, and then you can see this is transforming the normals and the headlight locations kind of into world space. So now if I look at these spreadsheet, the results of these normals over time will move around and adjust over time. It's pretty cool. And then the position as well will move with the vehicle. And then sometimes, I don't know if this is the best approach, but eventually we want to put lights onto these. So instead of it being a directional vector, we want like Euler degrees, rotational degrees. So I could make a new attribute here, just doing a bind export. We want this to be 3 floats or a vector, but instead of it being the normal like direction vector, we want this to be in degrees. I could just call this rotation, and then I think doing, I don't think it was that one, but I forget the node that I was using for this. I don't remember if I was doing if it was a vector. Might have been with this look at. So if you just take the point position and then you add the normal to the point position, that's your look at. So basically you're saying from here to here, this is my direction, and then I think maybe with this extract transform, this one will give you the rotation. I think it's might be into, I don't remember, one of these nodes you can get it with degrees. I was doing it in the that like fog, the procedural fog tutorial. Son O'Connor, how's it going? Thank you. Yes, I think maybe this angle axis. Let me take a look. So we're making this into a matrix, and then I think we could go from matrix quaternion. I'm just going to grab this spreadsheet here and look at the rotation. So that doesn't look like it's in degrees. Yeah, I think it was this one. So yeah, I think I was just confused. This is the usual way that I was doing it, I believe. So you can see this is going between 0 and 360. And then it's just the Y that's rotating because the car is just spinning around. So now I can do another null, and then this is going to be out light position. So this node right here, this geometry is kind of just a helper. It's just doing some math or some rotations for us. It's possible to do like all this stuff maybe with Python or something, but just for working with nodes, I don't know, it's a little bit less typing and less math. It's more lazy to do it this way, but it's the usual way that I do it. So this will do it headlight. So we're basically doing this to transform from the object space and bake in this animation to the vectors, and then extract the new position and rotation in degrees to use. So to try this out, we can just make a redshift light. I might just go into like wireframe mode for a second. And if we look at this light, we just have a rectangular light. Alex, how's it going? Getting them gems. Yeah, it's hopefully some gems. So we did, where did it go? So we made a wet shader for this asphalt earlier, and now I'm just working on adding some headlights and stuff like that. So we want to get the position and that rotation attribute. Looking sexy. Yeah, the lighting got a little bit better. So one thing you can do here is if you add a spare input, what that does at the very bottom of this node interface, you just have this picker that you can link, and I can point this to the geometry that I want to reference. So that's going to be the headlight transforms. So doing it this way, when I make expressions to retrieve this data, instead of using this long file path in each of these parameters, I can just reference it in one location. So if I want to get the point position from one of those locators, I can just do point. -1 means to use this spare input. If you add more spare inputs, it just goes -2, -3, -4, and it just keeps incrementing negative. And then you would do 0 for point number 0, and P for the position attribute, and then 0 for the X component. Let me just switch this here. All right, getting a little bit more chill coding vibes. So now we can just copy and paste this to get the X, Y, and Z 0, 1, and 2 for X, Y, and Z components. And then you can see the light snapped to the headlight position. For this, it's the same thing, but instead we were naming this rotation. And we should be expecting X and Z to be 0. Because the car is just spinning around, it should just be rotating with Y. So now you can see this gets the rotation. Is this the same as right mouse button in reference scene data? I'm not sure exactly where that information is. I'm not sure where you're talking about right clicking, rotate. This might be. I've never seen. I didn't know about this this interface. You want the Resident Evil music back? Yeah, we'll crack that out once in a while. It's a rare treat. So I think let me see what happens if we go to the object. Oh, I don't know what happened. I'm not sure. Let me see where this ended up. I was selecting like the normal. I don't know where that's getting driven from. Maybe it changed something down here. I'm not sure. I need to do some more research and look into that. I've just maybe was using this before that got added, so I was setting it up this way. And then usually what I'll do, instead of having to type these out a lot of times for adding more lights, looks like maybe here the light is going the wrong way. You could just add 180 to it to flip it around. Then we could switch this to a spotlight. And then we can, I don't know, maybe it's possible, Bost, that reference scene data isn't a live expression. It's possible it just transforms it like one time, but it doesn't link it. But I need to look into that. Yeah, and then sometimes what I do, like this, we'll just say is headlight point ref 0. So the reason I do this 0 is because then I can go up to here and say to do op digits from the current node. So it doesn't look like anything changed, but basically that's taking the numerical number from the end of your node name. So I'll just copy this, update it in the other components. So this looks like a pain to set up, or it's a lot of expressions. But the reason to do this is then I can just highlight this, press Control C, and then Control V, and just keep making copies. And now I have my headlights duplicated out. So I just do this template expression setup for one of them, and then I can just keep duplicating them and making more of them. Sometimes with Mantra, I think you can do nasty. With Mantra, you can do some light instancing and stuff like that, but Redshift, I think their implementation or their support for it isn't fully operational, or I don't know if they're planning on doing it. I've tried to set it up before, but it's by utterly mad or genius people, or both. Yeah, I mean, it's I think definitely a bit of both. Yeah, so this is just our headlight mechanisms over here. And then if we want to, just gonna put this at the object level. If we need to move these, offset them so that they're not starting inside of the geometry or blocking it, you could just do peak node, and you just don't want it to recompute normals. But this automatically will just move points or geometry along their normals, so I can just use this now to uniformly offset or like bias these lights forward. You could also try it flipping these things around so that they like, it's possible if you have a metal surface that will reflect it and then bounce it, but generally, like, relying on renders to already do this kind of like caustic reflection, and it just adds a lot of expensiveness that it's better to fake it and cheat it kind of like this. So another thing, like, they're onto something though. I'm better the future of human language will be fully procedural. Yeah, I mean the node stuff, these kind of workflows and things, like one day it might pick up. The future of everything will be run by Houdini. Even even world's governments. So this the splash screen that I have here is actually from this was like the Chilean government. They had their in the 70s they had a computer system that was running it and basically doing processes that would tell them how to. So instead of the market, like the stock market running it, I think they were doing it using more of like TOPS or something along that line. If you type in, you look up this CyberSyn, this is what it was called, and then they have some different, you can find some charts, like basically they had this recursive structure that would assign tasks, and then they even have some node diagrams, kind of like Houdini. So this would do their central planning or assigning like management tasks and stuff like that. It's super complex to look into because it's just not that yeah, it's interesting. I mean, certain things are starting to adapt to kind of something like that. Some companies use this thing called the agile workflow. So this is like a startup is basically doing that process that the Chilean government was, but they're just kind of rebranding it. But it's like a similar kind of like way of working, especially coding and stuff like that. Like, I don't know, it's just writing out your management or workflow processes as a flowchart. Kind of, you can use nodes to represent the tasks or the processes behind stuff. You've worked with this agile system. Yeah, doesn't it? It kind of reminds you of that, where it's like decentralized. There's no, yeah, I mean, it depends a lot on the people you're working with and how it's implemented. I'm not a big fan of it either, the way that the agile company set it up. But I think ideally it could be a better, I don't know. The idea is to get rid of the kind of like manager, to have it where people are just self-managing and replicating and stuff. The key to agile is to not do it the way you're supposed to, and when someone asks why, look at the, like they shredded a second head. Yeah, I mean, it just depends. Like, I think another issue with the agile stuff is that it's already getting applied to coding and programming, which like nobody's set up a good method of like collaborative development with pushing changes and stuff like that. Like, there's a lot of other issues that come up. But if you were thinking of like applying the agile workflow to like a grocery store where it's just someone stocking the shelves, like that's already a pretty easy task to figure out. they could maybe handle that. And then it's kind of that idea that the Chilean government was doing was like, we're not programming we're not doing wild stuff. We're just doing like trucking routes and delivering goods, like that type of stuff, I think would be more easily. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, every process dailies. Yeah, there's some documentaries on YouTube for the CyberSyn stuff. It's pretty interesting. I don't remember which one. There was one that I found pretty... There's one that was like super entertaining. It was like hour long or something, maybe. I don't know. A history gem. Yeah, it's a sad part of history. Unfortunately, it ended with a coup to the government. Agents coming in and macheting, stabbing the computer like Julius Caesar, just destroying the government that way. Yeah, so we have the headlights. We'll just do a render now and see what we get. So it looks like something's working. I don't know if they're too intense or not intense enough. We can go in and get our lights. I might just try boosting this. So usually, like, I don't have these expressions linked. Usually I'll dial in one settings for one light. We would definitely want the volume contribution on so that it affects that. And then the spot parameter, I think we want a narrower cone. I don't know if we want it a little bit wider, I think, so it's lighting up some of the road. And I might just try boosting this exposure. So you might want to apply some angular tilt to it if you want it lighting up the road earlier. I might also just try to control it using this. You definitely want these beams to be a little bit more focused. Might also just be, I don't know. So I feel like the headlights aren't super, the cones don't fan out that much. Like, it's a pretty directional kind of thing. So we could go back into maybe our vehicle where we were creating this normal, and then if we just make a negative Y direction, we might need to update. Umair, thanks for hanging out. Yeah, of course. So what we did with that negative 0.2, we're just bending it down a little bit. Then it's best to do it here because then it applies to all the rest of the copies that we made. I'm just going to go back up to the cone angle and fan it out a little bit more. I don't know if maybe we want this. I think everything overall is just way too bright. It's kind of throwing it off as well. I was just cranking up the brightness to kind of evaluate what was going on. So that might look okay. And then I'm just going to delete this and paste them again. So we could see there it's hitting the smoke. I feel like these are, or just overall, maybe too bright. Yeah, so the backlights I was planning to do a little bit differently. So there's like brake lights, and then yeah, so I'm not 100% happy with it. I was trying to find my pure ref to look at. So I don't know if I have any direct references, but what I was planning to do, we could just start it now, I guess. So with the tail lights, there's, I guess, two components. There's like the brake lights that we could animate as he pulls in and stops or whatever. But then the more interesting one should be, I'm just gonna go up to the full model. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely just these small steps. It takes time to dial in, but over time, like the little details like this will eventually get you closer to something realistic. Maybe get some contrast between lights, like more ambient blue light and some warmer lights. Yeah, I think my overall lighting, I still need it. I still need to make some improvements, just for the light sources and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm taking a look right now. Trying to look up the tail lights for this. No, it's all good advice. No, yeah, just had different. Where did it go? A few different ideas, yeah. So some of these are looking more better than others. Yeah, of course, Dubtronics. Like this one, I thought was an interesting idea because they don't have to model out a big environment. They're just doing this kind of abstract geometric shapes. Still makes it feel real because they're making it out of cement, but then they can use these to obscure parts of the light. So I was thinking something like that with maybe like making a labyrinth, like a maze that it's driving through or something. But yeah, overall with this, they do have some warmer areas and then the cooler lights over here. So just something like that, like some orange sunlight, or just, yeah, some orangish warmer light from the sides and stuff. Easy composition with lines that way. Yeah, so that is kind of cheating or whatever. I think the other issue is just my camera still is too high. I'm kind of doing it this way to show off more of the smoke, but I think that's kind of hurting me a little bit because it's like a weird location for a cameraman to be in filming this. But yeah, I'm just gonna keep moving and do some taillight stuff. Sometimes this looks like this model doesn't really have it, but sometimes there's like a bar or red line that goes across things. It does look like there's some yellow areas, like this orangish stuff here, and maybe the red bar is up top. So basically those, I guess this one that's right there, these should always be on. If it's a nighttime setting or whatever, they're just like indicators. So even if the car isn't braking, they should still be on. So I'm just gonna look inside and see what's going on. Nothing. Wait, let me see what happens. Split it up. It's possible there's nothing that they've put inside of those. And then this, I think this model is pretty simplistic. Like there, I don't see either a top or bottom tail light. I think this is just the modeler, whoever made it, wasn't looking at a specific model reference, like a specific make of this vehicle, and they might have just skipped that stuff or that tail light. But I think one thing we can do is maybe taking these glass areas. I might just make like a shape inside of here. If we start with like a tube, maybe a torus, like a ring kind of shape. I might try this as a geometry light and just put it inside of here, because it's not directional. We don't want it beaming out. We just want it uniformly like emitting in all directions, and see what happens. So we could do this rear area. I'm just going to do the same thing we did the last time with the directional. I'll just grab those and delete this stuff. And then we should be able to do the same idea over here. Connectivity, extract. So now we have a point for each tail light area. And then just setting things up, you just copy these toruses to the points. I'll just line them up with the car, maybe make them thinner. They should probably be smaller. Let me just get this templated. We're gonna need to do some more rotations and stuff, but I'm just gonna see what happens with this. Yeah, so for right now, we're good to just start testing. So I'm just gonna do a null. I think for the geometry lights, we can, we don't have to fetch it and transform it like we did earlier, because we're not interested in like pulling out the transformation coordinates like rotation. We can just directly reference this geometry into a redshift light, and it will pick up the transform when it does that. So I'm just going to keep working over here with the, these are just like extra lights. So if we want to enable or disable all of them, they're just a little bit compartmentalized. We'll just do RS light. And then instead of area, or I think instead of shape, just set this to mesh. And if I grab the taillight geo, let me take a look at the wireframe. I think these should be, we should be able to see them in the viewport. I'm just trying to take a look. We'll just turn on volume contribution. I might just make them more intense, and just gonna move it forward when the vehicle is already in the shot and just see what happens with the render. I think it's possible the redshift node isn't applying the transform it looks like these are still happening at the origin. So I think we're just gonna have to do another bake of this. I'm calling this a bake because we're using this object merge here to bake the transform into this object. So I should be able to do tail light. We don't need to do these operations. And then this one we'll just say is tail light. And then I can just reference this. Let's see what happens. It worked. So now we could set these to a much redder color. I think they're overexposed right now, so they're kind of burning out. Probably don't want to go 100% saturated, but something like that. And if you want more scattering kind of stuff happening with the volume, you could. Sometimes I was like boosting this stuff quite high, but it just depends how much like light interaction and stuff you want. But seeing this on the puddle should be nicer. I'm just gonna go back to this area and do some modeling tweaks and stuff with this. So I think we might want to do this normal node again. You can see it started to do the tilt there. We don't want that tilt, but we might want to do like we do at p.x. Then it's starting to bend them out like that. You could just divide it by a number to adjust how much it's bending. So something like that. Now they seem to be lining up. I think we might want to squish these down so they aren't that much of a donut. This shape right here, I think we want it more like a strip, or like a ring of light like that. And I don't know, it depends on if you want it more like a tube or how fat you want it. This might be maybe looking a little bit more realistic. You could also fill it in. I don't know. Thinking now maybe something more like that might make more sense. And if you, I don't know, I haven't done a lot of research into the headlight designs, but you do like copy and transform to make a couple of these. I feel like usually you would see two. It looks like these maybe going the other way, or maybe just after we duplicate it. I think I have some 8K textures in there that are slowing the IPR down a little bit, but also the volume, like it's like 25 million voxels or something like that. So for the volume to get copied over to the GPU or for Redshift as well. Maybe one light per shape and scale them down as they move outwards. Yeah, that might look better. So one light per shape, you're saying like these different compartments. Yeah. Maybe these go down. we have some issues here with the these things not getting flipped. I don't know if we need... I feel like sometimes that gets controlled with the up vector. Oof. Oof. We might need to do a rotation to assign an up vector and then flip these. Oof. Not it, Chief. I don't know. There it is. We did it. Yeah, so this one-sided mirror, yeah, that would work as well. I think these, it was just the vectors or something like that. Yeah, I don't know about this scaling. I think I'm doing it a bit too much. Something maybe a little bit more subtle. And then I think we can just move. It's the lazy man's way of working right now. Let's see what we get. Yeah, I think my stuff is angled in differently now. I think we'll probably do the Steve's mirror. Yeah, so I think this one ended up getting poked out of the shape. So we could just do a clip right here by the X. And then instead of above, you could just do below. And then I think we can do a mirror by X. Uh-oh. The vehicle isn't centered or something happened. I might just be able to do this. Now I've done it. What do you think? Let's try this. It's looking a little bit more professional. Less amateur hour. Let's take a look at the intensity maybe. I don't know if these is too dim. It's the professional taillight modeling method. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like we might, if anything, just want to play these up more than down. Might be too much. Something that you at least notice them. Could try another frame later on and see what they look like with more smoke, more of the So I think the headlights overall are a bit too bright. This stuff back here is a nice, they're feeling like a better intensity. So I might just cut this in half. And I'm just gonna keep duplicating. You can link those up with expressions, like the relative references, but I've found that Redshift doesn't update. Like if you have stuff with relative references, I don't know if Redshift is that good at updating. I don't know about this. It might be the tinted stuff we did to this window. At a certain point with these, I don't know, it's always hard for me to know because I feel like a good amount of this stuff gets done in post. Like maybe they have an emissive shader that they're layering on or something like that. But I was looking at a lot of the Behance stuff and it seemed like a lot of heavy Photoshop and stuff like that is getting used. I'm gonna go back to the vehicle shader. Yeah, I'll go back to that, and I think this car body, I don't know what's going on, but something with it isn't. Whoops, this was a different node. Something about this yellow isn't feeling too good for me right now. I think something like that seems a little bit better. It was just an odd shade before. I didn't feel that professional or that realistic. You guys know what I'm talking about with adding an emissive shader and doing it in comp, basically. So if you make a texture, yeah, I don't enjoy the idea of doing it, but I guess we could take a look at the automotive shaders in our glass. That was originally ended up tinting everything. But I do remember we had these split out, so we have window glass and headlight glass. So we could do a different shader for each of them. So we'll take this glass, and then this we'll say is the headlight. The blooming effects, where the center of the light is a bright white and it fades to red. There's certain tricks and stuff you can do with that with Redshift, but it's not as built in. So it's a bit of a pain sometimes to set up. But I'm just gonna go in. I'm gonna take a look here. I think that these should be our headlight strips. So I could just update this to the headlights. Yeah, gradient node on an emissive shader. So that was kind of my idea, like with these RS geometry lights. You can make a custom light shader. So this says enable light shader. If you want to go in here, you can do that, and you could do a ramp and like modify this shading network for it. Then that ramp will be based off of the UVs of the geometry of the light. So even for a grid light, like you can add a gradient to it that way, but you have to unlock. I don't know why you have to unlock it. Or you have to. It's just a pain. It would be nice if you just could do a ramp up here. Reconstruct the facing ratio for the headlights or for the geometry for the. For this glass material. I'm going to go back to this vehicle. this glass. So I just copied it from the window glass to have the fall off on the emissive light. And we're just going to turn this refraction back up to 1. We need to restart the IPR. The reflection. Yeah, I don't know. It might be because this headlights is like a point light source, so it's just such a small area. Maybe we want to copy. I guess we're seeing a little bit of this metal stuff lighting up. The reason maybe flip these around, see what happens. I don't know, that's what I was trying to originally. Let's just see what happens with that. So we have the headlights and with duplicate lights. Let me just see what happens. I'm going to take this facet, just do reverse normals. Yeah, so I think with duplicating them and putting like a sphere or something like that in the same area might be the better approach. So we'll turn that off. And then I can just take this copy, and instead of this headlight, we'll just call this like headlight sphere. So I'm just doing that so I can rename them and go back down to 0 for the op digits expression to update. And then instead of this being a spotlight, we could go to area with a sphere and just make it really small. Whoop. All right. We might even want to make it smaller. We could change the looks like the height is a little bit off, but yeah, we'll just try this and see what happens. So I can just make a bunch of copies of this and give it a try. So we have something happening. I suspect because we don't have normalized intensity, they're just really dim. If we turn that on, basically that's like compensating the intensity based off of how small we made them. Nestle them inside. Yeah, we could make them, I don't know how close, because this stuff, basically all of this thing here, I just have the metal shader applied to it. You think we just need to get closer to this center there? I think visible, we also just want them invisible to only show up inside of the reflection. Yeah, I'm not sure if, like, sometimes with these headlights, if you're fully building them out and stuff, yeah, this front should probably be glass with like a little bit of a bump map to it. The bump is nice because it will like act like a more advanced lens as it refracts or reflects the light differently. But I'm just gonna try this. So I'm gonna go back into the the headlight node, and I think just with this peak, I'm going to decrease that amount. So everything should be a little bit closer. The lines on the ground points in a way that makes you anticipate the car move fast in that direction. Yeah, I think the lines kind of needs some work as well. Like, where did it go? So I might need to go into Photoshop or Krita or something like that. Yeah, and turn them more into a parking lot. Yeah, like the reference. So we could do it maybe in Houdini or something like that, but we would just need to modify the image to turn it and yeah, and make it more of a grid pattern. So I'm just gonna pin the view, and I'm gonna try to dial in this because we just don't want these lights to actually be like inside of the other stuff. Yeah, you could decal them. I think that could work. I'm just gonna try this with the... So now we have our updated point light positions. It's not a point light, I'm sorry, it's a sphere. It's so small, that's why I was calling it like a point light. So I think overall they're just still too intense. Maybe just going all the way down to 1. So we're actually at least getting some white areas, which is a bit better than we were before. 1 might be too low. I'm gonna try 5. I don't know, it doesn't look too good up close, but you zoom out, it feels a little bit better. I don't think it... I don't know, does it... I think sometimes I've had some issues with Redshift. But yeah, if I'm not doing the IPR stuff, I'll usually grab the multiple nodes and try to update them. I think for whatever reason, Redshift isn't that good at detecting updates. Like, either doing expressions with relative references just for light intensity and like light rotations and stuff, or object rotations, like for whatever reason it doesn't like it when you do that. I don't know. I might have been messing something up, but I'm not sure. Yeah, so we could take a look at the decal stuff. So I think under... Just turn off wrap. So now we have it. Placing it kind of like a decal. And then you can use this offset to position this stuff around. So I think we could do like... Make that scale bigger, so it's kind of like a parking... It's kind of like a parking lot space. Maybe it's a wide one. He's got some extra bit of room there. And could just do another add, and then you can just kind of combine these, I think. So like this is placing another one over there. I'm just gonna turn off the other stuff for right now to lay these out. We have our phantom vehicle showing up. That's okay. It's I don't know. It's still nice to have maybe a sense of scale or a template. This stuff here ended up working pretty good. But yeah, for this offset. Oh no. Oh no. What happened? So this crash is usually pretty reliable. We'll see if it got it. No. So yeah, it looked like it saved all that stuff. So I'll just save this again in the same directory. I'm just gonna go up a version, I think. We should be good. Saved by the crash file. Yeah, so I can just go back into auto update. Back to our stuff. Get our render view back. We're back. So this one I was just moving it over to give it like a gap. Maybe this is the median or something like that. And this isn't necessarily the best way to do it, but I'm just going to keep going along quickly. So these ones now, I'm just going to move them. Looks like we have to go to negative, slide them back. So it's not 100% perfect for a parking lot, but it's closer. And if we want to, maybe using this max on noise, just to scuff these lines up even more. So what I'm going to do is just look at a noise texture here, something that's like pretty gritty, and multiply it against the existing values to add some more crunchiness to things. I don't know about this FBM. I don't know. It was pretty good. Maybe we'll just keep it with that. This is just for a detail kind of thing. We don't need to be too specific with it. Should be okay. So now if we just multiply and we can just reconnect the blender. I might need to do the change range. I feel like those lines were just too bright overall, maybe. The red makes it more dynamic. Some blue. Yeah, I forget where I had it saved. There was I might be able to find it real quick. But there was another reference I saw that was kind of like a convenience store parking lot. So the convenience store, like a gas station or 7-Eleven or something like that. Yeah, this is it right here. Gives the cool blue light or whatever. So if I had, I don't know, something like this over in one of the corners, or I don't know, you could even do it, start with like a, not even model the inside, but just use a photo and like projection map it or something maybe. But yeah, I feel like that, he didn't make those bright, that bright, but that would be really interesting to make it pretty real right away. I think I went a little overboard with this stuff. Some warm light, the interior lighting. Yeah, this stuff here is really, really nice. But yeah, I think I just went a little bit too crunchy. So like the bottom of my range, or just make it a little bit softer. Just grunge everything up. I don't know, we could try, let me try something here. Just keep adding vectors together. So I'm gonna add one more of these maps. I'm gonna take one and move it going the other direction. And I don't know. Maybe it adds a little bit of complexity, kind of. You don't know if this is a loading, like a truck stop or something. Maybe they have specific reasons for marking lines like this. I don't know. Like maybe this is a different, this is for motorcycles or something, or golf carts. Your phone is autocorrecting. Is that what you were trying to say? Some warm light in the car that makes it pop? So I might try, I'm gonna turn these other ones off. I'm just gonna try getting the beam stuff looking a little bit better. So I think I'm trying to do like more roll off, like more blurry soft edges or something, and then jack up the, I don't know. Something like that, I don't know. Feels a little bit more natural than it was. This penumbra or whatever was just feeling a little bit too too odd. I don't know if it still might be the angle. Like we changed the normal to rotate it down a little bit. Maybe I'll just try something like that. Whoops. What are we seeing there? I was just adjusting the different angles there to try to change the what part of the light? Just the headlight. Yeah, it's where it's hitting the ground. Because I had pointed them down by going back into this vehicle. Yeah, it's a little bit confusing. So I moved the normal direction down. I don't know if this will update because it's oof, we gotta he popped in to say hi. So the sometimes with Redshift when you like change values it just snaps stuff to the origin. But yeah, like now the headlights are pointed down too much probably and they're just hitting the car immediately. But yeah, I was using this normal, just adding some negative direction. It might be too much. Oh, in the reference, yeah. Like hitting it right here you're talking about? Something over here as well. Yeah. So the something warm hitting the ground and then, I don't know, with the tires. This is the advantage of doing stuff in Photoshop. You could just paint in interest, but then, like, I don't know exactly what is, I guess it's this stuff over here. So yeah, I guess with this setup, they're doing cool lights inside of the convenience store, and then the exterior lights are, I don't know, incandescent or warmer temperature. With the V-Ray stuff, it looked like it was a little bit flipped, where these were cooler, and then they had some other light sources warming stuff up. And then this one's, I don't know, maybe just adding some blue to the headlights. So yeah, I was just adjusting. I think that this makes more sense, like generally that the headlights don't hit that close to the front of the car because the person doesn't see that area anyways. So yeah, I'm just gonna try some of these other cameras. And see what happens. Whoa. I don't know how the ground got so much more bright. But yeah, I feel like just the angle we were at was a little bit weird. Like maybe going more directly overhead. Of like Grand Theft Auto 2 style. Or more level to the ground. You need to adjust lighting and stuff, but I'm still not too committed to the... That's why I was saying like adding the convenience store or something. You lost? So we'll add the smoke back in. Maybe going back. I think the smoke overall might just be a little bit too thick. We could just increase this range to thin it out a little bit, I think. Yeah, the headlight stuff is pretty... Like, the ones that I've seen, it seems pretty heavily photoshopped. There was something on Vimeo that I was looking at somewhat recently. You found a good one? Where did it go? I don't know what's going on with Vimeo. If they just updated their thing, people would still... This was someone, I think this guy made it in Houdini. He doesn't talk about the render or anything like that. But for doing this as like a CG, a full CG shot, everything feels pretty pretty integrated. This is what that one looks like. Oh, this is the tail light reference. Yeah, maybe doing a triangle, a different geometric shape could be yeah, and sort of the headlight where it's hitting the ground. So I think one of the things that they're doing is making them cooler. That's helping them. I'm just gonna go in here and adjust some of the smoke stuff. So I was just making it thinner. If we go with a lower angle, I think it makes sense to be able to see through more of it, kind of. It's a really weird way that they have redshift where it's like these two things are decoupled. You would think just using this shadow density, I don't know. I find it pretty kind of counterintuitive. So maybe something like this for right now is just try out some more of these camera angles. This stuff is feeling pretty nice, but in front of it is it's a mess. Yeah, I think in your reference the headlight was pointed down more and maybe blooming out. I think mine are just too bright as well. I don't know what happened here with the kind of GI stuff. Maybe my I think that environment light that I was using is just was too pumped up. But yeah, I think the headlights here, I just try going down to like 250. We'll leave one side blasting. Yeah, I think that makes more sense if it's, you just don't want to see it. Softer and wider, yeah. So I'm just gonna go and dial it in for one of these. Maybe like 120, 25. Yeah, that's definitely looking better. This part here, I feel like part of it is that there's not enough geometry inside of it. Like whoever modeled this car there isn't other stuff built out inside, but you don't look at that part. So maybe this camera 5. I'm just gonna bend it down even more. So I was going, my camera angle, I was trying to stay pretty high with it before to keep the like edges of the domain less visible. And then you don't have to do as much work with the environment, but I think that was we just kind of ended up hurting our end result a little bit. These calipers and stuff is starting to become a little bit more interesting. This is what I was talking about. Like, I don't think they modeled the inside of the car, so I think that taillights are just illuminating all the insides of the the body, instead of, we might want to add some light blockers or something there. The underlights, some neons. This bump might still be too intense on the asphalt. I feel like now that we're at more of a glancing angle, it's like way too strong. It might be the normal as well. Let's just bring that down. Yeah, I think it was the normal that was making stuff just too, just catches your eye too much. It looks weird. You could probably bring some of the bump back. The bump was like giving me the broad scale, like low frequency details. The normal, I was intending to just get subtle kind of specular differentiation. I think that's, I don't know. Something's still a little bit too, might just be my the stuff I'm calling dry might need a little bit more roughness, I'm thinking. But yeah, at this lower angle, we might want some of that reflection, like warping that I was bringing up before. Yeah, I think the wet is too, like it's too much of a mirror right now. That's what I was talking about with this subtle warping, like low frequency distortion. Right now, my only options with the wet are to either go between this high frequency bump or completely flat. So what I was saying is to make like a broad scale noise that's just doing some mirror, like warping distortion type stuff. It's harder to see in these references, but this, I don't know, like that kind of stuff was my idea, where it's not perfectly straight lines, but it's not as high frequency as this stuff. Could probably get away with doing a little bit. I think if I just go a little bit higher and maybe even changing this, so it's never a complete mirror. I might just move the camera around some more. So this is better, I think, with that main grid light that I was using, kind of acting more like a rim. I feel like that's what they were doing with the V-Ray one. Like right here, all this stuff is hitting it kind of like that. I think it's the bump. It's not necessarily the specular roughness of my wet. I think this stuff I can go back lower with it. But then blending bump. So just still keeping some of the asphalt bumpiness around for the wet shader. try an earlier frame before he fills it up with so much smoke. Whoa. That caboose. The wide body. So yeah, I think having this, I mean, this is cool to have the underlighting, and maybe trying a different color or something like that for it. This stuff here is starting to look a little gnarly. I don't know. It's like a video game. You almost see the like cubic interpolation or something, or just pushing a bump too much where we should be using displacement. Might be the case for right now, but far enough away it kind of looks okay. Yeah, I might be getting close to just leaving it here. Starting to get a little bit long for today. But yeah, I think we could reduce the scale some more. Yeah, it might still be too much. So just right here is where I was globally scaling some of the bump stuff. Yeah, I don't know if it's just... Ah, this is nice. Do you think it's the UV scale? I don't know, I think this, at least this as well might be cool. The wetness stuff, we want to bring some of that back. And just bring it all back up a little bit more. You think it's you think the texture should be more spread out? Like you think these pattern here should be wider? Can try some stuff. So I was just setting the too stretched out. So I was just setting that puddle. Yeah, some of it's starting to be pretty cool. It's kind of weird too, though, because it's like you don't want the puddles to seem too deep, because then you expect to see some secondary spray or splashes or stuff. Just end up making more work for yourself. Yeah, so we could go in and play around with this. So we were starting at 9. Yeah, I guess if it becomes too big or too stretched out, then you notice more of the like cubic filtering or interpolation of the texture. So yeah, I might make a snapshot here. Maybe we'll go even down to 6 or something. Puddle simulation inbound. There's some really cool like slow motion or simulation stuff of these cars whipping around. I don't know if it's a puddle, but it's like a thin layer of water, and you just see the spray picking up and going everywhere or whatever. Some really cool reference in that area. Yeah, I think this is working a little bit better in terms of not looking as jarring when you first check it out. Going to sleep. Watching Houdini stream in the middle of a hotel room. It's more productive than watching a XQC stream in the middle of the week, on staying up for that or something, right? But yeah, this stuff here is I think it's starting to scatter in pretty nicely. I don't know feel like my render times are gonna skyrocket now with all this indirect lighting that I'm doing and stuff like that. But yeah, this tire smoke stuff is starting to feel pretty natural. Could try maybe going back into this asphalt and bringing it the bump back some more. I'm not going to see it now with my thing. This would be an interesting wallpaper, or like phone wallpaper or composition or something. You don't want noise. Yeah. Yeah, this frame is pretty nice as it is, I'd say. Buy it. So yeah, I'm gonna try this bump. Go back. I think it's nice. I don't know. Somewhere in the middle of that was pretty cool. Yeah, I mean, you could try like the Lambo's looking like a filet mignon. You could try doing the optics, like NVIDIA denoiser type stuff. Sometimes with volumes, like if you do this scattering, the indirect illumination, or anything that isn't, you don't expect it to be super sharp, you can do the optics denoiser. You could render stuff in multiple passes with this stuff down-resed, like rendering it at a quarter res, and comp them together. But it's a GPU render. We want to do everything at in one pass. Ooh, this is a good reference. Yeah, I think I need some blue or magenta in them. And then with Redshift you can do some, oh my god. With Redshift you can do some of this stuff. Ooh. And that will make it look a little bit better. Leave the streak. I don't know if they're doing like 4. I guess that's just a highlight on the road. They might be doing 2. I think they're kind of doing something like that. That looks very cool. Yeah, I mean, these positive X like comp, it's a lot more of the finishing touches or whatever. The flare stuff looks good as well, but I was always curious, like with Redshift, it seems like you don't have a lot of, I guess it's just, I don't know if it's always picking the middle of your image or it's trying to like average the overall intensity and find those coordinates or something. But yeah, you know, you just add all these stuff and it's it's good to go. There it is. But oh my. So it looks like scaling that asphalt was also adjusting my I might need to readjust the grid lines, but from this point of view we don't need to even worry about them as much because it's just details or whatever. But yeah, I think we're on the right track. Adding some of the extra ambient lights you guys were talking about is a pretty nice idea. Could look into ways of doing the texture baking or adding extra skid marks. I think the more subtle stuff we can do to mess up this asphalt things will help us. I have some doubts. I don't know. I think this wetness might still need a little bit more dialing. Wowzers! The Redshift post effects is all you need to finish a project. I guess this tone mapping stuff could be nice to add as well. But yeah, I think adding some cool, like the convenience store stuff, we might need to eventually change the headlights to be a little cooler. But yeah, probably gonna leave it here for today for the stream. Turn the HDRI off. We could try that. It might could do a snapshot. I already turned it pretty low. I don't know how much of a difference. It's probably just adding a lot of noise at this point. The main reason I was adding it was to try to pick up some little reflections so that the car wasn't just like going to black. But yeah, we can try it here with it off. I guess with the puddles as well, it would kind of add some... I'm doing the wrong snapshots. But yeah, it does seem a little bit better with the HDRI off. Just so we don't see the edge of the ground plane right now. I'm guessing it's speeding up the render quite a bit. But yeah, it might have been so... I think it was such a low intensity. I mean, it's adding some nice kind of coolness to some areas, but overall, I don't think it's needed too much. If we were to build out our set lights a little more like we were talking about, with the bluish stuff coming from a direction, that's probably it's a more optimized way of rendering this type of stuff. Would you need to add droplets and spray as well? Yeah, we were talking about that earlier. Someone extradite the puddle simulation inbound. Yeah, I mean, it just depends where you land with this wetness. I think right now it feels a little bit more like if you drove over this, it wouldn't necessarily fly up. Like right now, it's kind of feeling more just like dampness, not really residue left. Earlier, I didn't save any snapshots, but earlier I had stuff that, I guess when it becomes more like a mirror, that implies some more depth to the puddle. Like the surface there's enough water that's collected on it that the top of it is able to become smoother. But yeah, it depends, like fully plus this out, add some droplets, some condensation on the camera lens, fully go to town with those little subtle effects and stuff like that, and you're ready to go. But yeah, I'm probably gonna call it here. Got really good feedback today from everyone. Looks freshly sealed floor or rubberized. Yeah, I think some of this stuff needs some work. Again, from this camera angle, switching to displacement, we might have to do it for the pavement. I think that's what's giving us like the video game real-time look a little bit too much. Just using too much bump and tricks or whatever from this camera angle. But yeah, thanks everyone for hanging out again with me today. We've made really cool progress. We're moving forward. hopefully that either the tutorial, the grain rendering tutorial will come out maybe today or tomorrow, or if not, I'll see everyone, or you'll hear from me next on Friday. Another cool zone, another adventure into the cool zone. All right, see you guys on Friday.